I'm going to check and see if we're live. That's the most important aspect. So then we can stop
Oh,
personal
look at
stuff.
mine.
Right.
2P's in the podcast. Oh yeah, there we are, live.
Do we look lovely, do we?
We look fantastic.
We can stop.
And you can hear us and all.
Yeah, mute us. Come on there.
Yeah.
Get your pro head on there.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Pete.
Hi, Phil. How are you today?
I am fine. How are you?
I am very tired today.
Yes, me too.
Cool. We're in. I'm guessing the two people watching it are us.
Probably.
I'm going to share that on my normal page. That would be the thing to do.
I just noticed I have big things stuck on my teeth.
Oh, yeah, you do, yeah.
Fuck's sake, hang on.
You're total pro.
I need to sort that out.
Yeah.
Claire will kill me, like.
I thought Claire would have told you.
Let's go. Right. We made that, Claire made that pasta dish that's been doing the rounds where you stick a big lump of feta in the middle and put it in the oven.
See, I can't tackle any of that stuff.
I'm normally not a fan. I was a bit dubious, but then it was really nice.
Feta cheese. It's just not my vibe at all, man. It's too middle class for me.
I'm not really a pasta man.
Really? Do you know, I don't like paying for pasta. Because, like, I feel
Yeah,
like
it's such a waste. It's like 2p.
Yeah.
And they charge you 20 quid.
Yeah.
And it's always disappointing. There's an Italian place in the Ormo, I won't mention its name, but awfully disappointing.
We went to Italy and everyone was like, I've been there a load of times, but we went to Lake Garda, and the last time we went, it had sort of been converted into a holiday resort more than anything. So then the food, every restaurant you went to was the same. It was being like shipped in. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was like everywhere you went, it was the same menu, and you're like, what? Is this not supposed to be like family run? Like,
Yeah.
and then eventually, like the third day, fourth day, and we found some homemade lasagna. That my mother-in-law's is better.
Yeah.
But
So what have you been up to?
I have been. I've just started a new project. All this Arts Council stuff has come out. Do you know what I mean? And people are looking engineers last minute to try and fulfil their things, and that's really where a lot of work's come from me this past while. Like a lot of people going, well, you put in a price, yeah, and we didn't do it, but now the other person's let us down. Would you do it now?
Like, yes, for double.
Yeah, but that's basically what's happened a bit. And then some people just sort of stuck for time and not being able to book the studios and are sending over sort of acoustic and vocal things, and then I'm trying to arrange and working with people and things as well.
Cool.
But yeah, it's just all of a sudden, like January was quiet, but I knew what was coming in a way. Do you know what I mean? Everyone was talking about it. You could see the conversations starting to circle around. You know how it is in this game. Like, you know what work's coming in by the conversations, and then you know what work's not coming by the conversations as well.
Yeah, those guys, you can smell it a mile off, can't you?
Yeah, see when people are asking you questions and they're just looking at price, really, to put in amongst things. You know, I can tell exactly, and I just go along with it. What about you? What have you been up to?
Just mixing, really. A lot of mixing, finishing stuff off, and a couple of new things came in. I got a track for Rory that he kind of recorded at home. Rory Nels, he recorded it at home, and then because he just wanted to put something out. So we're doing his album at the moment, but that's taken longer because of this whole crack. And then a track for a guy called Rich, who he sent me. He just recorded it at home on GarageBand, I think. It was really good. And then just mixing, really.
That's it. That's like, I've been arranging and mixing. That's mostly it.
Yeah.
And even then arranging my. Sorry, I'm gonna get my headphone off this cable. I feel like a proper pro. I can move my head both ways. Yeah, no, I've been getting tore into mixing and arranging. Mostly arranging. I think I get my mixing work because of the arranging and as well probably the prices of people when I work with people that I can get as opposed to what they can get. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, because you're constantly bringing in work to these other people, you can probably get a better price for people, for pianists and strings and things as well.
You're like a wee discount code.
Yeah, I am. I'm honey.
Yeah, honey, yeah.
And that's it. It's like, I think, but though I'll be totally honest, I don't think I work out as much cheaper as going into a studio after a while. Do you know what I mean? Although you'd probably have to pay all those people individually, and it's probably a bit cheaper because they're able to do it from home. But it's kind of weirdly working. Do Do you know what I mean? I'm surprised because it's kind of always what I've wanted to do. And when this first kicked in, like the whole COVID thing, I couldn't believe my luck when I got 2 albums right away that I just sat at home and started engineering and arranged. And I was like, well, Jesus, this was the dream. Maybe this whole COVID thing's grand and it's just changing what I do. And it kind of is still, do you know what I mean? It seems to be working now. It's like everything that I wanted to do is probably started now. It's not as prolific as earning money doing covers and shows and writing music was. But it's definitely come through a bit. Like I did want to be an arranger and a mixing engineer more.
Yeah.
And that's happening now. But it's probably only more because there's fuck all of anything else. Of course it's more. 3 projects is better than 0.
This is it. I'm really enjoying the whole different way of working. Like I'm enjoying being sent random madness. I'm trying to make it sound good and like, you know, or just, you know, embracing the whole this is mad, fuck it.
The embracing element to a certain extent has to happen now. And like we were talking about this before, we both don't try and polish things too much. We're not that type of person. We're not that type of engineer. I love that live raw feel a wee bit. And then people that are coming to me now are like, I want you to mix it because I love your album and I love St. Albans album and I love the Peter McVeigh stuff and I think the production and arrangement's good. And you're like, right, well, fuck, I'm winging that out. And then you sort of, but after you put an album out, you're the same as me. You sort of look at all the wee bits that you've done wrong. You probably learn more after you've put it out and people start listening to it publicly. Like you do by sitting working on it. It's like, right, well, I'll never do that again because now I hear that every day of my life. So
yeah, exactly. Funny enough, actually, I was looking at a mix I did for a guy, and I just looked back over the session, and it was one of those sessions that I think we started recording it 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I kind of been dipping into it since, and then we eventually finished it there a few months ago. And I was just looking back over the session, kind of yesterday, going like, what was I doing? You know, because I really liked the mix, and I looked at the master bus, and funny enough, I don't think I actually fucking looked at it when I kind of did the final mix. I just don't think I looked at it at all because I was just like, it kind of sounds cool. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I think I must have at the time that I started working on it, I think I just, you know, downloaded the Slate Digital stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, I must try all this stuff, and I just lamped a load of it onto the submix thing, and then
Chris Lord Algae style.
Yeah, like, really bizarre. I'm actually looking at it now, and like I had like the Slate Digital compressor thing where they do 3 compressors in rack kind of thing, and none of them are doing anything, but it just makes it sound a little bit louder. And then I have weirdly the Slate Digital mastering plugin
Slammed on the bottom.
I had put it on, but like I didn't have any compression on it. I just had their kind of what do they call it? It's like their gain bit of it, and I just have that on. And then you know that Vitamin plugin.
Yeah. I got Vitamin a while ago. I used it when I first got it, but I haven't really delved into it too much.
Well, that's the thing. I never really would use it, and I was looking at it, and I have like a load of sub put in.
It's a harmonic exciter, isn't that what Vitamin is? Or
it's like a
multi-band compressor.
It's like a multi-band kind of. I don't even know what the fuck it is. You can like widen. Yeah. Every like you know the 5 frequency
multi-plug-in things, isn't that what it is?
Yeah.
I think I was.
But I think it's like a multi-band compressor kind of in a way. I think. Jesus, I don't even know. And then I have an Oxford inflator on after, which I must have put on later because I only got that about 6 months ago. But like, I just couldn't believe that I had left all that stuff on, but it worked.
Do you know, it's sometimes like I play about with stuff, like I've started now using templates more than I've ever done before in my life. Because because people are looking at sound as well, and it's like, right, well, you're looking at sound, but let's look what I was doing in my stuff that you like. What songs of mine were your favourite, or what songs of the band were your favourite? And then when people are trying to reference it, it's like, I'm not trying to recreate that for you because it all has to be based around the mood of your song. But I need to sit and go, right, well, what did I do and what is it I think they like about that? Do you know what I mean? So in a way, you go back in and analyse your own stuff. And it's class when people reference your own music as something, because then you can go back into the session and actually look at it and see.
Yeah.
It's like, right, God, let's see what I did there. And half the time, like, all my mixes are completely different, although they all sort of amalgamate at the end and come together. I'm not really trying to do that. I'm trying to mix the song, and then I think to a certain extent I have a certain style, and I have the way that I like to mix. It's not perfect, and it's still developing. It's getting better, but and it'll always get better, hopefully, until the ears go, and then I end up like you.
These are actually hearing aids. They're not.
Did you get a new set of hands? Did you?
I got those old Bayer yokes. What are they called? D770.
Are they nice?
Just for tracking. Because I was using these cheap Sennheiser things for myself at home. That like just the spill was fucking mental.
Yeah.
So these are really nice actually. They're lovely. And
what about the Oxford Inflator? What do you think about that?
I love it.
I was sitting talking to someone before, and I was like trying to explain what it does, and I was like, it's perceived loudness, and like someone was like, what does that mean? And I was like, without turning the volume up, you're turning the volume up because you're increasing the harmonics with each of the things, so it actually gets louder by increasing all the parts inside, as opposed to increasing just the volume, and it doesn't increase the decibel level, and it's weird though when it happens, because you can literally, I started using it whenever I was having trouble getting the vocal to sit out in a mix without sitting on top of a mix, and that's what I found the Oxford Inflator was fantastic for, where you could just increase the volume of something without it sort of popping out of the track. That was always, I think that and sibilance were always my sort of downfall within mixing. And then recently what I've realised is probably low-end bass. Getting a real tight low-end bass. I sort of cut out up to 50 hertz a lot of the time on most things. And then you were saying you would really enhance 30 and stuff like that, wouldn't you? Like, yeah.
But apparently, because I was actually reading something recently, and I used to go down the thing of like, not that I hate admitting that I do think about it sometimes, but wanting things to sound nice on a phone. Yeah. I used to like, would be boosting bass guitar, I'd be boosting mids and stuff, thinking, well, that's where you're going to hear it. Yeah. But I was reading something, and it does work, because I'd inadvertently been doing this before I read this, where I was putting like the Little Labs Voice of God low end enhancer on my bass guitars and on drums and stuff, and I found that when I was listening on phones, they were really like kicking in. It was just, but it was really sub like. And then I was reading this. A friend of mine got a book about mixing. I thought he was sending it to me as a joke, but he wasn't. He just must think I'm shit. But this guy was going on about you to kind of high pass your bass guitar at like 60. And then he would high pass his whole mix at 35, but then he would put a bass enhancer on the bass guitar and enhance the bit that he had taken out. Right. And that's why I kind of realized I was actually kind of doing that. Right. And but it really, really works. Like stuff on phones and small speakers, like the bass just like sounds lovely and warm and woolly on it, and I'd been like trying to like make, you're compromising, you're kind of making stuff sound shit just so people could hear it on a fucking phone. But this kind of, it doesn't sound shit anymore. It just sounds nice and subby. I've
been flipping into mono loads more now, which I never do. We always talked about that. I never do it, and I understand why you should, but it was just something I never really worried about. But then what I found out in terms of using mono, is that if you can get your low end sounding great in mono, it sounds fantastic in stereo. Like, if you can get it real, and it's much easier to get it tight in mono than it is in stereo. And by flipping into mono and mixing your low end bass, you really get a massively tight bass in your stereo. And that was just something like, I was reading it as well, actually, recently in a wee book, just some free time. I've really been trying to upskill this past couple of months, really since COVID kicked in. I had a bit of a shock for a couple of months. And then I thought, right, well, let's try and get better at stuff. And I got my electric drum kit. I got a new piano and stuff, and just started doing lessons and thinking, right, let's start getting better. And then I thought, well, let's go and start doing engineering and mixing a bit more, and let's go back into the beginner and intermediate and see if I've lost anything. So I started going through in a fundamental, like, no, that. Oh, right, I must have skipped this bit. Do you know what I mean? And like things that made things much easier. Like I never really use multi-band compression loads. I use it as an EQ tool more on my bass, as opposed to actually like using it. And I started getting into that a bit more as well, using C4 and C6s and things like that. I'm going, right, okay, I understand what I'm doing now. As opposed to, I was doing it, I knew what way it sounded and what way I wanted it to sound, but now I'm much more aware of how to use the knobs.
I know it's one thing that I end up like I'll use it the odd time, and then I'll kind of I'll learn what it's doing.
Yeah.
And 2 months later, I've forgotten what all the knobs are doing. Like because it is just.
Man, I did a lesson in Cirque there, explaining an 1176 and how it works, and I sent the lesson out, and
Had you done the wrong thing the wrong way?
The 1176, the way it works the opposite way.
Oh.
I was just like, yeah, one's quick, like literally still, and then I was like, oh shit, and then I was like, I know one student's going to pick up on this. I know who it's going to be as well. And then he sends me an email. I was like, I know I've done it wrong.
I should have just said nothing and then told them they were wrong.
So I just like put it back in, and then basically had to redo a whole video, and just for one wee bit, that in every other compressor is the right way around. But it's funny. It's that type of thing where, Jesus, last year, I like when I was teaching, it was something that I always pointed out right away. I took a year off and just almost forgot about it right away, and it's more because I stopped using the 1176, especially the Waves one as well. I mean, it's just like I think Waves are going more for character of how things used to sound as opposed to functionality in terms of being a compressor.
100%. It is all character with Wave. I found that because I have like the Universal Audio 1176, and then I have. Is it the Waves one, or maybe it's
the CLA 76, the Waves one?
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
And like the Waves one is just really character. Like,
yeah, it's really muddy, and like as much as you try and tighten it up, it just doesn't really work. It's woolly. Do you know what I mean? It's not like the. I was always wondering why I couldn't get focus on my bass, and I was like, oh right, I changed that, and then it worked. I have to say the best thing that I've ever used now at the minute is the FabFilter plugins.
I need to get them. Very expensive, aren't they?
Yeah, you can get the educational discount on them though.
Great.
Someone can probably do that for you. Like.
I'll sort that out.
But yeah, I think they're about 300 quid then. For the full
Each
suite.
or for all?
For the full suite.
Oh, for no.
Yeah. Although like, really, the EQ, the C2 compressor, the gate, and the DS are all you really need. The reverb's class, but I don't really use it still. But have you been using the Lexicon reverbs at all?
I have I need to look it up.
The native ones?
No, I have a is it a Lexicon? Yeah, I have the Lexicon 224, the Universal Audio one.
Is it any good?
It is class. Actually, am I able to like share my screen?
Yeah, do it.
Host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Oh, did I? Let's see, I can probably change it. Screen share.
But it is really good.
You should be able to do it now.
Let me see. Pro Tools.
Make sure you have all that other stuff closed.
I know, yeah, Jesus Christ. Imagine. Is that it? Can you see it?
Yeah.
It's deadly. It's class. It's really mechanical sounding, and there's a cool this pitch shift thing. Like it just makes it like so filthy. But it's it's cool. It's very specific. I find like I don't really use it on much.
What are you working on there at the minute?
That is that track I was saying about that I had the mix bus on. That look at this. Like, not doing anything. Doing that. Nothing else. I think I must have just tried it and left it on. Vitamin. Loads of sub.
Yeah.
And then Oxford Inflator.
Just doing its thing.
Kind of just doing its thing. Yeah. And yeah.
Reducing the curve. What was I going to say?
Oh, stop sharing. Sorry. There we go.
What about something that I've sort of looked at and really picked up on that's really handy, especially if you're setting off. So our latest song piece, I didn't mix. It's the first one that I haven't mixed. And we went back and forth and sort of feedbacking on things. And what's really funny is that the song's pretty loose. It was like a Van Morrison type song. And then the engineer has tightened the drums to the beat. So in two sections, it's off because everything else sort of slightly lands.
Oh, right.
I only noticed that there's not massively off, just slightly off. But when you're the person that's created a piece of music, you sort of notice it right away.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see what's happened here. It looks like I've got a bit of a stall live. No, it's grand.
Okay.
It's grand. But I started looking at gain staging a lot more. And you kind of need to do it if you want to get your mix across to another mixed engineer. Know the balance that you have, especially if they're sort of just looking stems. So like just getting your gain at a good level on the actual waveform itself. No, so on Pro Tools and stuff, you can turn that up and down at the bottom of the actual waveform, and just making sure that everything is recorded well. That
The
it has,
clip gain.
no clipping, but just making sure that
Oh, sorry,
it's
clip gain. Is that? Yeah, sorry, yeah.
and just playing about with that, making sure that it's all good, and trying to get my balance in that. So when I export my audio files, there's a general vibe of the balance that I'm looking for.
So when she imported it, it was kind of balanced.
Yeah, and what you're doing is like making their job easier as well. Do you know what I mean? And if you're looking at a quick turnaround, which we always are, do you know what I mean? I'm always like, well, we put this out, right? Let's put it out in 3 days' time. Like we wrote that song on a Friday, and it was out 2 weeks later. Do you know what I mean? Like everything done, mix, master, art. Like, just I am that person. I can't sit in my arse and have a plan and let's go get a PR person and market this at this date. I just can't do that. Don't know why.
How did you find I'm giving up the mixing? Like, how did you find passing it over to someone and letting go of?
It's terrible.
Did you find it difficult to let go? To like?
Yeah,
give up
I did.
control?
I was, to be honest, I was trying to get your feedback on it so that I wasn't just being a dick when I went back. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I got Andrea Wright mixed it for us, and she's really, really good. She's really experienced, works massively on massive things, and she wanted to hear the master after and stuff as well. And then when I heard it on radio, it sounded class. Do you know what I mean? Like, it sounded really good on radio, like last night. And you're like, right, that sounds good. And the bass isn't as harsh on the radio. The low end isn't as harsh. Do you know what I mean? As that kick's slightly compressed a bit too much for me. But then at the same time, we were talking about you have to kind of accept that it's other people's flavors that you're bringing in. And I think I like after our last album, I complained to the guys that I wasn't fucking mixing the next one again. Do you know what I mean? Like, just with the rush of it and the pressure, and especially being the person that writes the songs and stuff as well, and is like engineering it, just was a big ball ache. And it's just very hard, and it's trying to keep everyone happy as well. It's harder in your own band to mix your own music as opposed
100%.
to.
Plus, you're always just listening to yourself.
Yeah, you're so involved in like that voice. It's class.
It's like, yeah, my guitar. And did you ever find as well, like, if there's anything you've played, you're less likely to edit it because you're like, well, that's going to be perfectly in time.
Do you know what's really funny? A lot of the time when I'm mixing my stuff, apart from a voice, because I always like the voice to be up loud, I think I'll probably turn myself down more. And
Really, yeah.
in a counter way, doing like going, I'm trying to not be like, oh, so self-involved, but really it's probably detrimental to the song. And there's probably an argument there to then say, you should be giving this off to someone else to mix. And the reason I started doing that is I really think that if you want to progress something, you need to build a team of people. And then this piece is the first song we've worked with Andrea. We're going to work more with her. It's going to make my life easier and me not have to be doing everything. We're going to develop a relationship. Do you know what I mean? And I believe successful bands, and I've seen successful bands, do have people that they work with, and it's a team of people that become successful together, not just the group of musicians. Do you know what I mean? And successes, different things, but for me, I have a very specific idea of what I want from this.
Yeah.
And I know how to get there and what the steps are, and part of that is opening it up and letting
And plus, the sandwich always tastes better when it's made by someone else, doesn't it? Like,
yeah, that's it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and at the same time, she's very, very open to my input. When we went and recorded in Power Street Studios in Liverpool, it was like, here's the stuff, and I sat down and opened it, and she was like, oh, you know how to use this stuff? And I was like, yeah. She goes, right, great, you can help me, you can engineer with me. Do you know what I mean? It's
Cool.
like, yes, I'm getting to sit in this class studio and properly engineer. And then she was in charge of all the outboard stuff, doing all the big expensive stuff, but I could set up the session, sort it all out. Opinion was sort of valid, which was really nice to sit in and at the end of it, I said I had some issues with phase and understanding phase. You know what I mean? After doing a degree and teaching it for ages, I was like, it just doesn't sink in with me, and she just sat with me for, at the end of every song, for at least 20 minutes per song, all the kit, and sorted out everything, and showed me how to do it. And then, at the end of the session as well, the best everything, which I think we should all do from now on, we sat with the drummer and got him to take samples of every single hit of what I did. So if we needed to replace anything, it was from that kit. Do you know what I mean? It was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to do it. Definitely hard to sort of give up and let go. Have you had to do it all yourself? You were supposed to master and dog. You had to, did you?
We did out of choice. The lucky thing with us is that we kind of make, well, our first album, we got our friend Ian to mix it, and so we had kind of just given up that control anyway, which was nice. But the second one, we kind of just mixed our own, whichever song we'd written, and then 4 of them went off to Ken Nelson, who was class. He's the Coldplay guy.
Yeah. And did you think that because you were saying before what you sent him and what he sent back, you were like, yeah, how did you do that sort of thing? Is that those files? Yeah.
Yeah, there was bits. Yeah, there was bits of it. Like, yeah, how the fuck did you do that? Like, how is that guitar sounding like that? But it's like when I listen back to them now, I'm kind of like,
You get it now.
I kind of get it, and yeah, I think they were recorded well. Not to sound like we're tooting our own horns, but we spent a lot of time and we were very meticulous with those tracks, especially because we knew we were sending them to him.
Yeah, I suppose.
And he would only accept kind of a certain thing. Like, it was back then, it was probably very different back then, because I think, people were still, getting big money for mixes, and we were going through his manager, and everything had to be okayed and all that kind of stuff. So we were very cautious about things being clean, and they were edited. Like, we had it all edited within an inch of its life, and so just to give him as little to do. But I found it a lovely experience because he was lovely, and he was very very nice to work with, and there was no problems at all with going back to him about anything. And
did you go back much?
Not a huge pile. They were always just tiny things. I think there was one of my tracks called Devil Knows How. We had done a drum. The drums were recorded in our old studio, which had this big, huge, empty factory room beside it, and the kind of room mics were out there. Mm-hmm. And I kind of thought it was too much when he sent it back the first time. He was like, "This is a bit too much, that room." So he did that thing, which I do now. It's like, all right, fine then. I'll send you without them, and you'll see. And it sounded shit, so I was like, yeah, no, you're right, put them back in. And now I love it, like, it's class. But yeah, they were literally like, you're talking, can you turn up the vocal a bit?
Yeah.
Like, there was nothing technical because he'd done everything great, like. But
that last one that Andrew did, the one thing that you've just said reminded me of it, is that I have like, I'm suspecting that she sent me such a bad low end balance. And then the next mix came so quickly after it that I was like, it's that thing to sort of make you go, oh, this needs fixed, and then they fix it, which was already done. So you feel like it's been fixed, and then you can just sort of move on. Do you know what I mean? Because, like, we've all done it. I've done it. Do you know what I mean? I've done it as, like, I have the next mix ready to go, so people feel like they're involved, and you sort of get to have more control over it. It's like, here's the mix. Oh, I would fix this. You go, oh, like that. Oh, yeah, that's it. Perfect. Oh, well done. Yeah, you fixed that. And then that was the mix, and it stops all that happening. And I have a feeling, after me doing that to people, that's just happened to me.
yeah. All the tricks. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently about recording. There's one called Recording Rockstars.
Okay.
Which is great. It's just this guy, American dude, who interviews everyone, and like it's all kind of, every show is different, but it's really nice. He just goes into, like, what are you using on your bass guitars, what are you using on your blah blah blah. So it's cool. It's really informative. But I just love it because it's really opened my eyes to not feeling bad anymore when I get an essay of mix notes.
Yeah.
Because everyone does, and like, just even to the top level, these guys are getting mix notes, and like, just sometimes I feel like you get, and you just feel so like, oh,
I've just spent ages doing this, and now you've sent me this.
Yeah, and it's like, you hate it. but the thing that, like, everyone's saying is, like, they don't hate it. It's just they're so minute little things that if you change them, or if you even just change one thing and send it back, you'll find that they're like, oh, that's great. But like, a lot of the people don't, you want someone to write to you, I really love this, by the way, this is class, and you're deadly, and we love you so much, but can you do this? But nobody does that because they don't think that you have self-esteem issues. And then so it's always quite, like, pointed, just like, but like, one guy recently sent me a lovely one where he said, like, if I think of any notes, I'll send them to you. And I was like, great, this is going to be one of those no-note mixes, great. And then next day I got an email off him that was like, right, 6 notes. and kind of just he started off with them, and they were really good. They were really like, no, actually, you're spot on there. You're spot on. That's great. And then at the end, he wrote, "This email does not convey how much I love this." By the way, and I was like, that's such a nice thing to say, because it just makes you go, okay. And then when you're going to do the second pass of it, you're not just like going, oh, even no man, no, nothing I do here is going to make this better for this person. You know,
You're still gonna hate it.
yeah. So yeah, I think it's nice. I might just start putting that out when I send the mix, going, you must start your email with "you love me."
It's heartbreaking sometimes. Like I know that there's been a time where I've just went back to someone and says, like, you've given me so much feedback on this that I'm pretty sure that you have an idea of what you want. And if I'm not getting near that, I might be wasting your time and you might be wasting mine.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was like, oh no, I think it's great. And it's like, but that's like you've picked every instrument and you want it remixed. That means I'm not getting it the way that you want it. Do you know what I mean? Like, so then I came back and give it back to them. They're like, oh, that's perfect now. And I was like, you're just saying that. I don't want that either. Do you know? That's not what I want. I want, like, when I work with someone, especially for the first time, I want to build a relationship. I want to sort of know what you want. And after a while, then I want to be someone that just can give you exactly what you want every time that you send it to me. But if, it can be an instant thing where I know I'm not that person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's been twice where I've just went to no. There's been twice as well, or 3 times, where I haven't taken work because I know I'm not the person. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's not my skill set. I'm not going to pretend it is, especially for extremely heavy rock. Do you know what I mean? That sort of rock, virginal metal. That's a specialty, really.
I have that on my my bio. It's like I do, you know, I like working with everyone except for metal. Don't do metal, because it's a whole different
It's brick
ball
wall
game.
stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's flat. I don't listen to it enough to have any references and understand the references. That's more what it is. It's really, really, when people do it well, it is unbelievable. It's a real high level mixing as well. Like,
Oh yeah, you need Jesus. I'm trying to get a kick drum to sound like that. I don't know how to do that.
I don't know where to start with that. Do you know what I
I
mean?
know.
Like, it was just
I'm
like,
doing everything opposite. I'm taking all that high end out of the kick drums. Like, you want that in?
transient designers just turning up the attack and then take all the do you know what I mean? But yeah, it's
I'd love to try one just to see. Maybe we'd class at it. Like maybe like
yeah. We need to develop, and you need to get better because your money's running out. What was I going to say? There's a part in this, by the way, where you should go back and watch. You mumbled, and it put German subtitles up. I swear to
no.
God, like you mumbled for like a wee sentence, and it actually put like they put German subtitles up. Like, actually go back and watch it. It was about 5 minutes ago from now, so watch that.
I do tend to mumble.
It was so brilliant. I started laughing. You might have been looking at me and you were talking, and I just started laughing, and it was because literally it was a whole sentence of like German.
That's amazing. I'd love to learn how to stop mumbling. I have mumbled all my life to the point where my mum, FaceTime has been the best invention ever for me talking to my mum, because when we used to just talk on the phone, there'd been occasions where we'd finish the phone call. She had then rang my brother to ask if he knew what I'd been up to, because she couldn't understand me on the phone and she didn't want to say anything. But now I think she can lip read me. Because I do, and you don't notice it. Like, to me, as far as I'm concerned, I'm talking perfectly fine here now, and it's not. And then I watch these things back, and I'm just like, yeah.
What I'd like to know is,
I'd love it. I need to get like a little meter or something that bleeps when or like shocks me.
I talk too fast. That's what I do on these things. That's what I notice. And my West.
When you talk too much, Pete, that's the difference.
But here, it'd be shit if we both were quiet as fuck. But yes, for people that are watching, we're going to get more people on. We just thought we'd sort of get back and say hello and what we've been up to. We've both been mixing loads of stuff, working on loads of stuff. I've been writing another album as well. And then I think we don't know if we're going to put that album out at the minute because it might be a bit too depressing for people at this point in time. And we might save that for after.
Delay that one by about 10 years then, yeah.
It just genuinely is very, very somber. And then everyone's down at the minute. Like, everyone. Everyone I'm talking to is just not dealing with it well this past week. And like me included last week was, see with that rain here as well, I was just done, stuck in the house. But yeah, we literally have like some gorgeous songs on it too. But I'm not. I don't want to make a decision on it now because we're still all feeling a bit shit. And
This is it's an album one.
yeah, like
Yeah.
really, we have an album finished in terms of songs, but I don't know if it's right. The songs are great and it works well together. But the first one was really somber and people appreciated that. But I think people appreciated that because of this all kicking in and it helped them relax.
Mm.
And I think it might be a bit too down. Do you know what I mean? It's REM, Everybody Hurts kind of down.
Hard to know, isn't it?
I know it is. It's going to go out at some point. I just don't know if now is. I don't even know if now is the time to release music.
Why don't you do a happy version and a sad version?
Them just literally major, minor.
Yeah, double album, like.
Just because I've better things to do with my time, Phil.
I don't know how to write a happy song. I can write happy songs. I do write happy songs. I just don't do them for me because I think it would seem ridiculous if I did them.
I think I'd love to
What's
sit in a
good for
bar and watch you just do 5 happy songs in a row. But like Andy seems to be the guy that can pull out the more upbeat sort of vibes for us.
Oh, really?
Like I can do them, but when I do them, they're super pop. Do you know what I mean? They're like really like my first album, When We Kiss, is just like. It's just like, what are you doing? That's not you. You're a heavy, near 40-year-old man standing on stage doing that with a wee fucking Gibson 335. It's just gonna look fucking ridiculous. Just talk about how you love your kids and you also just want to escape from them sometimes. That's what's left. But yeah, do you know? I've been seeing more and more mixing engineers pop up online with advertisements and stuff. Have you been seeing that?
Mm-hmm.
On fucking everywhere. I've been like, I'm not here to criticize anyone, but then when I went and checked out some sites, and it was like, Jesus Christ, man, don't be putting that up. Like, it's not. You can't say you're a mixing engineer and put that up.
I think everyone's it's an inevitability with this whole crack that everyone's kind of doing it, which is fine, obviously.
Well, we're all doing this at the minute as well, aren't we? We're all doing podcasts and talking and streams and.
That's it. Everyone's just trying something to fucking get by and earn. I'm enjoying it. I don't know. I quite like just hearing the diversity of things that are coming out and.
I think you're allowed to be shit. I think that's part of the process of getting good. And if you're
Yeah,
worried about
100%.
it, like fair play to people that are just giving it a go. And I'm not even worried about that undercutting shit. Just do it. Everyone needs to try and get anything, what they can, when they can at this point in time. Like, do you know what I mean?
That's happened since day dot anyway. So
Yeah.
I don't worry about that anymore either. It's like there's always somebody who's going to do it for 20 quid.
I know. Well, that's it. We were talking about before. We just have a price and how you set your price and what it is. And it's like ours varies and fluctuates depending on who it is and what we want to get from it. If we feel like it can enhance our careers, it'll be cheaper. If we feel that it's going to be hard work, it's dearer. If it's just the standard, because you're just a standard person. Like, there's so many things. Like, it's like friendships make a big difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a hard one.
The problem is you end up being friends with fucking everybody.
I know. That's true. After every project, I was talking today about this mixing stuff with Adele that I do, and some of the musicians are charging like buttons in some cases to play on the tracks. But that's their price. It hasn't even been a special price for me or anything, and my price is much dearer than that. But with them playing so well, it makes my job so much easier. And I was talking about giving the musicians an extra couple of quid and stuff like that. And then Adele says to me, "Now this is the point where you're taking what you do for granted because you've got so good at it, you can do it quick now. Doesn't mean that it's worth any less money." You know what I mean? It's like it used to take you a longer time to sit and get your balance and your mix right, but now you just know exactly what you're doing. Like, there's times where I can get my mix done in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, literally go in and like I know, and I send it off and say, "Here's the first run of a mix," and they're like, "Yeah, it's perfect." Do you know what I mean? And then I feel kind of weird taking the money off people for that 15-minute thing
So you're not charging for
per minute.
8 hours. You're charging for a mix. So yeah,
And the other thing as well is the experience, the expertise that comes with it, and
years and years of yeah.
your copyright as well, in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's basically it. It's
And the amount of the cost involved, the amount of money you've spent on gear, plugins, and
yeah, it's a weird thing. It's just definitely is weird. Like, because there are still times it can take an hour, a couple of hours. Do you know what I mean? Especially big 40, 60 track mixes. But then sometimes they're just acoustic songs, and it just is very, very easy to get the balance right and to know what people want. But yeah, it's that's something that came up today that it hasn't come up yet, and just even Adele, like Adele can engineer and stuff. She started as an engineer in the Waterfront Hall and stuff, did the same degree as us, and just was just like, you're good at it. Aye. Do you know what I mean? Like I would still cross all my mixes past her. I was like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And she's usually just tell me the truth. It's like, know your ma, where your ma just fucking tells you the truth, and like, you're getting fat. Do you mean to put on weight? No, you're getting fat. Or no, that sort of stuff. That's it. That's what my wife's like with mixes now.
Aye, that's good. That's good. Are you see when how are you at letting mixes go? Like for instance, I'm one of those people who will do, if I get a mix, I'll spend a few hours editing it, and then I'll go away, and then I'll come back later that day and then start mixing it. But it's normally spread over a couple of days at least, because I need to kind of just get away from it and come back to it. And I tend to like agonizingly send it off because I'm like, I think I never feel like I'm done, you know. How are you with that? Are you quite methodical with that's done, right?
Yeah, I am now.
Yeah.
I know when it's done. I'm very much going from that, the art of mixing. By the way, Darryl Harkin said to us, it's all triggers, lads, and metal. It's true. But yeah, I know exactly what I'm going for now, and I've got very good, in my opinion, at getting my what's in my head out now. And when I get close enough to that, I have an acceptable standard either side. Do you know what I mean? If like, yeah, it's in that ballpark, and I can send it off now. I've got, do you know what it is as well? And you'll know this too. I've got my room set up exactly the way I'd want it now, and I know. So now these sound really good in a car and in a phone, and like I've got the balance now. I really focus on LUFS on my masters. So I'll make sure that everything's either, depending on what it's for, if it's minus 24 LUFS or minus 18, or if it's a real hot podcast way up higher. But yeah, I look at my standards, and I was reading The Art of Mixing loads, and using visualization processes, and I've now got myself into a nice headspace where, and it's probably like a form of writer's block in a way as well, mixing sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Like you're just not happy with it. Writer's block doesn't mean that you're not writing songs. It's just that you think that everything's shit.
No, I don't. I'm not like. I've kind of like that thing that I do. Like, kind of going back to it is just my process. It's not like a
self-deprecating thing.
It's not an issue. No, it's just kind of the way I do it. Like I
you give yourself space.
What's that?
You give yourself space.
Yeah, and I feel weird because I have done mixes before, or because I've had to, because they're you know, there's a very strict time limit on it, that I've had to just give it away. And I've never liked those ones when I listen to them back. I always like the ones that I go back to. And I get these eureka moments. Like, I'd been working on this one for ages because there's no kind of time limit on it. And it was really difficult because it was, I think there was, 100 and something tracks on it. And like, just so much stuff. And it's very disjointed. And I couldn't get it. And I went away from it for about 2 weeks, and I went out for a walk over the weekend, and I came back and I just opened it up and I literally just changed faders, and that was it, done.
Do you feel like you're mixing in your head when you're away from it? Do you feel like I definitely feel that. Like those type of songs that you're talking about are my songs for me. I don't really mix 100 tracks for anyone else, but I mix 100 tracks for me. Do you know what I mean? So they do take longer, and I give myself longer to do it. They can take weeks and months. But mostly I'm working with songwriters with straight band setups.
Cool.
So it doesn't overtake. But yeah, I agree with you. I think giving it space and give it 2 to 3 days is class. Sometimes because you're still thinking about it the whole time.
I know. You could become obsessive with it. Like,
I think it has to be in our personality to do it. Like that's when we're talking about taking control of a project and taking control of an album, and I kind of do loads of the stuff. Do you know what I mean? But then at the same time, Andy does all the artwork and Mark does all the graphics. We all have our own bits, and you're like that as well. You have to be obsessive. Like there's a slight OCD element or a major OCD element in what we do, and I noticed that when we talk to each other. I mean, like all the engineers that you sort of get together with, you're like, yeah, we are slightly on the spectrum somewhere of like we're not just we definitely have like an obsessive disorder of some sort.
Big time. And I think, it does. It kind of helps. Well, it hinders as well, but it does help.
You have to be able to get into 13 hours.
Yeah. And you have to like, you have to pick up on stuff. You have to be so critical, and it's a bizarre thing when you really think about what you're doing. You're listening to these thousands and thousands of little elements, and trying to pick them all out, and you'll never get them all. But just trying to make something out of that and be artistic. And I find a lot of the stuff I'm working on, I kind of tend to have to be quite artistic with the mixing and then adding stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Are you filling like gaps or spaces frequency wise? Is that what you're trying to sort of achieve?
Yeah, and then I'm just like, right, I'm going to play Little Roads on this now, or I'm going to do this, and then you become quite involved in it, and then there's also that element. And when you start doing that, and you might spend 3 hours on this thing, you're going, they might fucking hate that. Like, it's like, will I tell them? But like, yeah, like that track of that I was showing you there, the mix puzzle was like, it started off. It was Kippy's Muse track, Chris Marsden, called Lovely Guy, and he we had done it like with it was a ukulele, and then kind of a drum track that was just jammed out. So you're doing that's all that was on it, and then Chris is great because he gives me free rein with stuff, like pretty much like he does, like you just go for it, and then he sends stuff back. But I just ended up putting on these synths and a slide guitar thing, and I love that because it's always stuff that like I'm kind of I would love to do on some people's tracks, but I know that they don't want me to do that. Yeah. and like it's just kind of free rein to try out stuff and try out weird sounds and because he loves the whole like weirdness and wackiness, so just doing mad shit, and I loved it. Like there's a bit in it I recorded a FaceTime call through my guitar, the little yeah. And it ended up kind of it was in the same key. So I just chopped it up, and just stuff like that. I love doing stuff like that, and there's so many tracks that I work on that I would just love to fucking mess about with like that, but I know I can't. But I tend to get a bit like that with plugins and stuff, of just trying to get kind of artistic with it. Yeah. But I would really love, I was talking to actually Daryl, maybe it was Daryl or someone about this, that I would love to, I've never done it, like download stems from like some really famous country song that's recorded and try mixing it. Same, I've never done that. It's a pure immature thing of just going, I'm too good to be, I don't need to do that. But I would love to, because I would love to see what I would do with that kind of track.
I've seen my students have done that quite a bit, and I've seen instant progress over a month with them. Because when you have good content, you can hear more of what you're saying to me, more of your own character that you can add into it, because it's so clear and very precise and really well recorded, so that anything you add is genuinely effective. EQ works so much more on those tracks because they're so well tracked that you can actually hear the difference that you're making. We've all worked in sort of like really shitty tracks where like you're EQing stuff out and going, that should be that sorted, but Jesus Christ, it needs so much more to when you're sticking 2 or 3 on. I'm working on a Brian Hassan track at the minute. He's a songwriter from where's he from? Lurgan, I think. Not Lurgan, I made that up. I can't remember now. But he plays open tunings. And what really confuses me in terms of arrangement in that is like, yep, I can find the key, yep, that's fine, I can find the chords that I'm playing, but it's the voicing of the chords. You know what I mean? So like they're basically first inversions and second inversions that are being played, and then trying to match that on a piano or those other things and not get in the way. That becomes it's a whole other style of playing that you have to do, because you're not just playing along chords wise, because really it's an open, more of a trad feel, or do you know what I mean? Something that then completely changes the way that the piano needs to be played.
Yeah.
And that becomes way more difficult. And like, as I say, I'm only getting into piano. And mostly like, if I'm playing piano, like I play an idea and send it off to Johnny McCullough. Do you know what I mean? Say, right, can you give me something back on this that has these ideas in it? And as I get more and more confident, that will change. But at the minute, like that's a real good sort of relationship as well to have with someone. It's like that someone doesn't feel that, well, I'm a much better player than that. I mean, usually when I send him stuff, he's like, that's a great idea, or this, and like he's been very complimentary of ideas and piano things that I've been doing, and it's I don't know, I find this whole arranging thing ever expanding and like the same as mixing. Do you know what I mean? Like, would you seem to be an arranger as well? If you're definitely like sticking roads down and things, and pianos down and things, and guitars down, and
I am, but not. I mean, it's funny. I always stay away from that word because I always think of an arranger as like somebody who's like composing, orchestrating, that kind of thing. I don't do that. I don't really read music, but I suppose you are though.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like you're saying about the piano thing with like the first and second inversions of chords and stuff. I find that really difficult as well. And like I play piano, but I don't know what I'm doing. But like Rory Nels, for instance, like his chords are mental. And this track January he released, I was like, I'll just put a piano on that. And I was like, it'll take me 2 seconds. And I was like, oh, bollocks. Like his chords are not just like standard chords. I cannot just play like a C over this. It's going to sound shit. But I sat there and I fucking worked today, and I found it really enjoyable because normally I'm quite like, oh no, fuck. Yeah. I really enjoyed just working out what each bit was and then doing it, and it was so nice because it worked so well with the guitar. And he's normally there to tell me that I'm doing it wrong whenever I put a piano in, and because I'll be like, I've got this Della piano bit, and he's like, no, that note clashes with that one. I'm like, what? It doesn't. But he wasn't there that time, but I was like, I kind of wanted to impress him. I was like, I did it all by myself without Mr. Theory Man.
Cheers, Sam Watkins as well. He said, so glad you guys are back. I love listening to this. Peter Vamos said Ben Folds 5 has a CD, or Ben Folds has a CD of stems that you can fuck with.
Oh, nice.
That might be a good one actually to sit working for anyone else that's thinking about
a CD of stems.
Must be.
Jeez, that's old school, Peter.
It must be an album worth of stems somewhere that you can download.
Oh, right, okay.
Maybe just thought outside the box.
A CD-ROM.
Yeah. It's an RW minus. So yeah, that's cool to know. Actually, it really is.
I know. I'd love to do it. Didn't Radiohead release some stuff for people to make?
Yeah, they have. And who else did it? Someone else did it recently.
Love to do.
I probably will do it. Do you know, I really do love mixing shitty sounds, though. I don't mean that like it's offensive to people. I love sort of accepting that you have a limit that you can get to, and it's like, right, well, this is the room that we're mixing in, and that's it. I'm not using convolution reverb here. Like this is what we're doing.
No, it's brilliant, but it adds so much character. There's a guy I was doing a track for, the guy saying he did it all in GarageBand, and he sent me the drums, and the drums were a kick drum mic and a mono overhead, and that was it. And I was like, I was kind of initially, I was like, oh shit, this I'm probably gonna have to get him to redo this, and it was class. I was like, sounds great, like, and it wasn't, and I was able to replace kick drum, and I was actually able to get a trigger of the snare because the snare was louder than everything in the mono overhead, so I was able to get a trigger of that. So like I had a really nice kick, really nice snare, and then I had this mono kind of, but it was nice, and I didn't overthink it because I hadn't recorded it, so I was like going, I accept this for what it is, and I'm not worrying that it's maybe not the best sounding overhead in the world, but it's cool, and it's like, that's the whole crack. It's something that was done. I don't know where it was done or who did it, but it's cool. And actually, sorry to go back to, I'm talking shite now, but I've been doing some work for a friend of mine, Irla, who we've been working on track 3.
You don't have friends. It's a lie.
Sorry, an acquaintance. But he sent me a track to kind of go through, and he had put in like an iPhone recording of a guitar at the start, and he said he had forgotten he'd put it in, but the tone of it is fucking amazing. And I have it going through the whole track now, and it's genuinely one of the best guitar sounds I've ever heard in my fucking life. Stuff like that.
I think stuff like that. Like, I know Andy had recorded "Strangers on a Train" by Travis. There was this train at the start of it. I think it was in New York, and they got his iPhone out because it was ding, 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 and it's literally just put onto the start of the track, and it fits in the key and everything. And I was going to say, do you strip drums, but then I couldn't get through to you. I was just saying, do you strip? I think in our podcast here it says 3 times, do you strip? Phil, do you strip? Do you strip the silence in your toms, or not the silence?
Yes.
Spill? Yeah. I just wondering, because everyone, like, I would do that as well. And then I went and was working with students recently, not like, probably in the past year or two, and they weren't doing it, and I was like, well, why aren't you doing that? Like, because I've told you to do that. Like, that would be a real thing to do. And no, just I love that, like, the whole kit's coming through. I was like, yeah, the whole kit is coming through. Yeah.
very lopsidedly.
Yeah, the whole kit's coming through. Yeah, definitely is.
It's hard. Yeah, like a 4-2-1, a whole cake going through a 4-2-1 sounds like a bag of shit. And like, there's no getting around that. Like, I only strip them if there's quite a lot of toms in. If there's like 2 or 3 tom hits, I just stick a gate on.
I would just strip them out of habit. It's the same with like vocals as well. I strip vocals, and I just go through it and do it myself, and then I automate or what do you call it? Optimize gain, or what do you call it, gain stage, and just try and get it balanced by that, and then use a compressor so I'm not slamming the compressor. I'm kind of more and more in my old age really becoming anti-compression. I just want to have a dynamic and a track that sounds live. I'll need it in a vocal, obviously, do you know what I mean? But I'm trying to really perform in my vocal so that I'm not putting much compression on it. Like, we were talking about that before. I really, like, I have a dynamic live. I've had a couple of people come up and say, "I use the compressor." I'm like, "No, I'm just coming off the mic when I'm going big." Do you know what I mean? I really sing into a mic the way that I do live to try and create a natural dynamic. And I kind of try and get people that I'm working with to do that as well, because like, I want to capture a performance. I really I really think recording should be capturing a performance. I don't think it should be polished too much. Nice pop music should. But I don't really do that too much. You're very good at that. Do you know what I mean? You are very good at creating like a real good polished thing, as well as being able to be lax and sort of let a natural flow. You've definitely much more diversity than I do in terms of your mixes.
Do I?
Yeah, I think you do. Like, mine are better, but you have more diversity. No, you do. You like. I think did you work on Sam's recent stuff there?
Yeah, 3 of the tracks.
Yeah, it was really class. I was listening to it the other night, 2 nights ago. It's a class EP.
It's great. Like, he's brilliant. He just comes with all this stuff.
But there's loads of depth in it. Do you know what I mean? Like, the actual mixes have loads of depth in them as well as the songs being really deep and sort of, and then it's a change in sort of direction. But there's a load of depth in the tracks. Like, all of the tracks, I don't even know what ones you mixed, but it definitely feels you can step into them, and that's something that I'm really looking for as well in a mix. If there is going to be a lot of production on things, I want to feel like that I'm there in the mix, and the production is there to aid the track and not just there to distract you. Do you know what I mean? And I definitely feel that, like, something like I was talking recently to another arranger about was, I don't feel that people mix to the song anymore. I feel people are trying, and people are giving songs off to sound a certain way without thinking what's happening in the lyric at this point, what's happening musically at this point. It's just, let's balance this and get it ready for radio, instead of listening to a song and say, what's the song about and what are we trying to achieve? One of the songs that I'm working on with Brian, I was like, here, you're saying this in this verse, so it should probably be creepy. Do you know what I mean? And then you're saying this in the chorus, so it should probably resolve and be much more relaxed and sparse. And maybe we should take this instrument out and put this one in. And I just that's genuinely what I love doing, and that's down to not just arranging, finding space. Do you know what I mean? And just, right, this needs to be silenced at this part. But that EP is very, very good. Really, really impressed with it, like, to be honest.
But yeah, that was fun to work on. That was and very, I'm sure Sam doesn't mind me saying, very kind of disjointed process of demos that he had. I think me and him went through. He brought over a load of stuff that he had, and he had these little tiny snippets of stuff. So that I think the first 2 songs are really short. The first one especially, I think it's like a minute long. But it's kind of it's meant to join into the second one kind of thing. But it just going, that's class, and then let's leave them like that, you know. And but he had all that stuff just kind of done. It's like he just brought these files in of all these cool vocoder kind of things that he'd done, and so there's already that depth there. And he had like all these cool piano bits that he recorded, and he, like, Sam loves noisy madness going on, and just to kind of leave it all in kind of thing, you know. So I think there is kind of cool depth in it already. So I always find those tracks quite easy to work on, because you're not trying to create that after. You're just literally balancing something that somebody has had in their head already.
What's your aux process in that one, for example? Like what are you auxing out? Reverbs, delays? What do you have there for your delays and reverbs?
I couldn't tell you.
Don't know.
It's different every time. I don't know. Probably loads of Valhalla, vintage verb and room, and I don't know. I normally would.
The verbs
I go
are
from
really
having
clear.
one. What's that?
The verbs are really clear. That's why I'm asking. Like, it was really, like, nice. Like, you must have EQ'd before the verbs, did you?
Probably.
Yeah,
And
'cause
probably after as well.
Yeah.
On that, there could be all sorts going on because Sam would have been dipping in and putting stuff on as well. And like, kind of just, there was probably a lot of stuff I didn't actually know what was going on. He put stuff on. But yeah, I think there was quite a lot of manipulating verbs, and maybe if Sam still watching, maybe he can remember and tell me.
Do you use, just a question, because I've been doing this recently, and just I think we'll probably wrap up in a wee bit, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. But on your auxiliaries, my reverbs and my delays and stuff, I've started using stereo spreads on those and nowhere else really in the track, and it gives a complete depth of like verb just pushing past you massively. So the instrument and the fundamental notes hit you. And then you've the width of the stereo track or whatever you're doing, and then I have sort of if I have 4 auxiliaries, I have 2 and 4 on my reverb and delay, basically that are extremely spread, like massively spread. So it genuinely sounds like things are starting to go like that past you. I'll also use like what do you call it, binaural, yeah, panning, yeah, binaural panning. Is that what it is? I'll use that on things like organs. Do you know what I mean? Things that are just constant, solid tones.
What are you using for that?
The Waves one actually is pretty good. Their BX, whatever it is, I can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember what you call it. I just know it starts with B because that's what I'm looking for.
Binaural stuff is amazing. I have a set of binaural mics actually. I keep meaning to dig them out.
Oh yes, so Sam's saying, sorry, just to interrupt you. I normally use Valhalla Room plus Vintage for verb and aux tracks, then just play about with the automation on the aux track instead of compressing them. Yeah, very good, same. I think like it gives movement to it, because when you're playing about with automation, you're not getting it exactly right. The way the compressor will sort of duck it and get it to a certain level, the automation gives a natural sound to it, and I think that's what I'm talking about in terms of the depth, because it sounds like it sits at different places to you, and not just a compressor slamming it to this position all the time, or do you know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of mixes are very linear in terms of I can see where everything's sitting in the mix, and that's obviously just through listening and analysing through a load of years. But I love when people use binaural or start doing their own automation on things, because it's imperfect, and because it's randomised, it just adds a load more depth to a track, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you know what is great actually? I found on your like reverb boxes and delay boxes is putting the Oxford inflator before. Like it's like, oh, there it is. That's that thing. But yeah, or like I started like putting like tremolator before my reverb and stuff, or like stuff like just to make it move and stuff like that. But again, yeah, it's different with every mix, obviously. And like sometimes I was like, oh, fuck, I forgot to do that. Yeah. But it worked. But yeah, I so you were talking about templates earlier. I've never used a template until recently, and I'm finding it difficult to get used to. But I've got an album coming up that is all quite
similar.
Yeah, something like this will make life a lot easier. I'm finding it difficult to kind of get my head into that kind of space, and I've found that my template by the end of the mix is it's not a template anymore. It's a fucking wild west of madness. But
it's not a set thing. My template is more to do with auxiliaries and stuff like that, and my master and my level metering and all those type of things. The tracks change all the time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'll have a piano, a bass, all those things that are standard. And then I'll have my virtual instruments that are there as well. And I always have a set of virtual instruments that are my sound. Do you mean there's now, over the past album and a half, I've started to develop a sound that is my sound as well musically. And that's sort of where I'm coming from in terms of a template. And I also have my songwriting template when I sit down, depending on what type of song it is as well. Maybe I'll show them in the next couple of things as well. Do you mean like, here's my softer song template, and here's my heavier song, and here's the guitar effects that I'm using on this one. And it just means that I can go in, and if I have an idea, I'm not setting up anything. I literally am plugging in and I'm going right away. And I've found that with all this shit, I really heavily invested in this and in my plugins and stuff. It can stifle you so much if you just can't be creative.
Yeah. We should do that. We should do one where we kind of go through our
track or something.
outros, sessions.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Maybe that would be something that we sort of suss out. I'll go through and...
we need to get somebody on as well who would go through theirs.
Yeah.
And,
well, I know that Philip McGee I was looking at his Instagram and he started doing that. Here's how the mix went, and goes through and solos all the stuff that he was working on for people.
Okay.
So yeah, and he said he's up for coming on. So maybe he would be one of the people to do it with.
That would be great. Actually, it would be nice. It's nice to see, because a lot of the time you tend to. I was fine looking at other people's things. You tend to realize, I was like, oh, I'm not doing that wrong, because someone else is doing that. That's cool, you know. Or someone else is doing something just as stupid as me. That's great.
It's giving people, because people are watching. Like, and I know people come back and send messages and stuff. It's giving people the affirmation that they're doing it right, and they can keep stepping forward and making wee mistakes and doing some things right as well.
100%.
Sam said I would spend days just going through every plugin to figure out what I can use it for, or else I never get anything done when I'm recording. Yeah, it's funny. I'm going to be totally honest. Years ago, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, I was Mr. Crack, not cocaine. But I'd say probably
crack.
just Parrot Software about 10 years ago really now, and then I got my job and I had every Waves plugin. That was the big crack that everyone had, and then I think that was 365 plugins, and now that I've bought them I have 105 because that's what I used. Do you know what I mean? And it's like I went through, and occasionally there's a couple of sales and I'll test a couple of things out, and then when I had to buy stuff, I still have a shitload of plugins, but I don't have a single cracked thing now. Do you know what I mean? I don't have.
I don't have any either.
I'm not against it either to a certain degree. I think you need to sort of play with things and learn how to use them. I wouldn't have had the money when I started, and I had to have a cracked version of Cubius. Now I always...
Everything I had cracked, I bought, so it was a good...
I can't be arsed
installing crack stuff now. I just can't be arsed with the whole hassle of it. I'll fucking buy it, because stuff is so much cheaper now.
I know.
Like when we would have allegedly had cracked stuff, we would have... it would have cost for, like, Waves stuff back 15 years ago was like 10,000 quid or something.
Just look at the VSL stuff. String library, 15 grand.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
fuck that.
Had it all, but I never paid for it. But yeah, and then you end up buying some stuff, like I have some of the VSL stuff. But what's like sample libraries? My favorite would be Spitfire Audio. That's like without a doubt my favorite. What about you? What's your favorite sort of sample stuff?
I don't have a huge collection. I don't really tend to use much of it. I have like Spitfire Audio Labs. I don't have any of the real ones.
Yeah.
But I love the lab stuff because it's really kind of like interesting. I have Native Instruments. You
have the Complete as well.
Complete, yeah. And I haven't even delved into like a quarter of it yet. Like I don't really would never use string stuff or anything really.
Yeah.
Now I've used the lab stuff, but it's always just for like kind of more kind of lo-fi fucked up kind of stuff. Yeah. But I don't.
That piano book that they do is unbelievable.
Piano book is amazing.
I just only found that, and that is the best thing I've ever seen. What's Sam saying? Would you have a specific compressor or EQ and that you would use constantly, or do you have multiple ones for different jobs? Yeah, I only at the minute use the Fab Filter stuff. I only use their EQs and I only use their compressors. Really, because they're so transparent that they just don't add anything. I'm not looking emulation of things anymore. I always was thinking that I'd get this Fleetwood Mac sound or this Foo Fighter sound, or like, I just don't give a shit. I know what I want it to sound like, and I want to like make a clean edit on something. I see EQ as a creative or corrective tool, and mostly when I'm using it, it's corrective. And then if I'm using it as a creative, I'm using my sound design skills to try and change it up. Do you know what I mean? Like the making a radio template sound or those type of things. I don't like using presets at all in any of them. As a compressor, the C2 is really, really useful for Fab Filter because it is visual as well as using your ears. Like you can actually visually see how much you're decreasing the waveform. And that's why it's just brilliant. Compression's always been something that's been melting to me. And then I, about 5 years ago, got it nailed. Do you know what I mean? Learned it inside out, and just that was grand. Except when we're talking 1176. But yeah, I just nailed, and then the C2 just made it so much easier. So yeah, that for me. What about you, Phil? Anything that you just religiously use EQ and compression wise?
I use always on pianos. I use DBX 160 always for some reason.
The 166 or the 160?
160, isn't it? Isn't that what it's called? Yeah, the 160. Always on pianos, and I always use that on. No, sorry, that's the only. I only use that on pianos, and then on bass. For some reason, I always go for a distressor.
Yeah.
On guitars, I always go for a distressor. I have the Arouser plugin, the one by Empirical Labs, or I can't pronounce that.
Imperial.
Imperial Labs, is it, or
Yeah.
Empirical Lab? I can't remember. Which is fucking amazing. And then I always use an LA2A on vocals, really always, even if it's not doing anything.
Yeah.
I just have it on it for some reason.
What is your vocal chain typically?
It's never the same.
Right.
It's just never the same. But the most likely thing is that I'll have an LA2A and I'll have a Pultec
Yeah.
EQ on it, and then I use the Waves EQ, which is, I suppose, quite like Fab Filter in a way.
Yeah, it is. Why the Pultec? Because it's very limited in terms of its control. Is that why?
Yeah, and I just like it. I think the Universal Audio stuff, as soon as you put it on,
Yeah.
it just goes plunk,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
everything's kind of just bigger and fatter.
Yeah. It all slumps into its position as well, doesn't it? It all fits a lot more. It's very like, yeah, I've noticed that about their stuff, yeah.
It's really nice. So like, and it's just nice. Like, and it's always like tiny little things I do with it, like, because it's quite, because you can't really see what it's doing. It's a bit terrifying sometimes, but yeah, that's mostly my vocal chain, and then like,
The Oxford inflator.
yeah, it's never the same.
Would you put the Oxford inflator on your vocal, would you?
I haven't yet, but I would. I'm sure I would.
You're probably just better than me at getting it to sit out. I just find the Oxford inflator just perfectly sits it. It just gives it a slight bit of width as well, even though it's not doing that. Do you know what I mean? It's not giving it width. But for me, it can be so narrow that when you increase that curve and sort of give it a wee bit of a boost, it just rounds it off and sits
I must
nicely.
try it.
It's lovely, man. I really, really love it. Especially, see if you're having trouble getting backlit vocals through as well. Stick it on an auxiliary, and jeez, it just goes boom. Like, I'm here, you can hear it. The same way with, it's the same
The
way that you...
MV2, I've used that.
The what is it?
The Waves MV2.
No, what's the MV2? Oh, yes, I have, yes.
I find that quite like it's kind of similar enough to the inflator
It's
in
a
a way.
distortion sort of thing, isn't it? Like is that a harmonic exciter as well?
I think it's just like a compressor, isn't it? It's like there's high and low.
But does
And then
it adds
you bring it-
distortion in, does it not as well? Isn't it sort of
Maybe it does.
Yeah.
I actually don't have a clue what it does. I just remember like I put it on stuff and I was like, "Whoa, that's cool!" And
Or,
I use that
no,
on
I'm
like.
thinking of the red. Sorry, I'm thinking of the red from Waves.
Oh right,
What
it's
one-
a little.
Show me it. Screen share it again. Let me see.
I'll
it again.
screenshot it. Hang on, MV2. Where do I? Like an old man trying to work this thing. Burr, 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 burr. There we go. That's yoke. Then you
Oh,
can
the
just go.
L2. Oh, so the MV2. No, it's very similar to the L2 limiter.
Oh yeah, no. I think this is like a compressor, but it seems you bring that up on like synths. It's kind of like the inflator. It's fucking. I probably sound like an idiot because I don't know what it does, but it's class. I like
sounds
on my like my sub mix for pads or stuff. I always put that on and just bring it up a bit, and it's just fucking class.
It's funny. Like I've really been. So I only LCR mix as well. Like
Right, okay. Oh, do you?
Yeah, I only do left, center, right. That's all I do. And
Really?
Yeah, and I've never changed from that ever. I've always only done that.
That's nuts. Did Andrea do that?
Yeah, as well. Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
The only time you'd veer from it is for auxiliary reverbs or delays in your
Right.
stereos. But the reason that I just did it was because all of my favorite albums were all sort of made in those type of desks that only had left, center, right, and Eve. And I was like,
Right.
well, if they can do it, why the fuck would I do incremental data?
I've tried it and I just couldn't. I don't know. It didn't suit me or something. I don't know. Or maybe it was the kind of tracks I was trying to do it on. Maybe you need.
I just don't like. I think it's now you can put.
Where do you get stuff to fit then?
It just all fits in its spectrum. There's left, center, right, and then it's your balance and your EQ. It's more an EQ skill after that. Then, do you know what I mean? In terms
Yeah.
of like, now occasionally, if I have a real important tom part, I'll set them there and there. Do you know what I mean? For the
Right,
tom,
yeah,
so that it
yeah.
rolls. But that's literally it. I wouldn't do it for anything else. For backing vocals as well, I would just use LCR, and everyone finds that really weird that my backing vocals are just well spread left and right, and then the main vocals in the center. But again, it's balancing, layer, and EQ, and no real compression on those then, so that they sort of sit out unevenly, and that gives a sense of them that they're sitting in different positions. Also, recording off mic. Do you know what I mean? Not just recording like I can set up a stereo pair and record off mic, or I can just record slightly off mic so that it has a position for referencing. There's so many wee things that just like I would try and track things the way that I wanted to fit into a mix, as opposed to trying to track something and fit it into a mix.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm very, very conscious of like when I'm recording where it needs to sit in the mix and what I need to do in terms of performance for that.
That's cool. I must try one. I must try one. I've never successfully.
I'm sure
I tried it and I was like, but I'd love to. I must do it.
it makes life much easier. It definitely does, because you can just go dun 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 dun, know where they're sitting right away.
Aye.
Do you know what I mean? And it's right. Let's get the balance right. This is muddy. What's muddy? What's competing? And then
It's funny. Yeah. Sorry. Go on. Sorry.
no, it's just that you focus on EQ more. Do you know what I mean? That's it. Like
Right.
you say, where's the balance here?
I suppose it would translate into mono a lot better as well.
Yeah. But then maybe explains why some of my mixes are shit.
Do you know what? It's funny because like panning is such a massive part of my mix process. Like I spend probably just as much time on panning as I do on anything else because I just love
See,
the process of it.
this is why I make double the money of you.
But yeah, no, I must try it. I must try it on on a kind of like a drums, bass, guitars
Yeah.
track and
Just do
see.
it on a Rory mix. Sure, he's not paying much.
I could, yeah. I must try it on. Yeah, I could try one of his actually because some of his new stuff is quite kind of. It is all just very band orientated. So, but yeah, it's an interesting one. I kind of forgot that existed.
Yeah. For anyone that doesn't know, LCR is it's left, center, right mixing. I only pan extreme left, center, or extreme right. And all
Yeah, it's for people who don't really know what they're doing.
yeah. It's like Dummy's Guide to Mixing.
I am joking. No, like that's a skill. I think that's an interesting one about the EQ. Then, kind of creating the space. That's cool.
That's like where I'm trying to get to with it, and it's part of the endeavor of like really trying to get good at it, and it's hard. The EQ space thing is pretty difficult. When we wrap it up for this episode, we'll come back with a guest hopefully next week, and then
Absolutely.
but that was good. It was good we chat. Whenever anyone pulls out, instead of us frantically trying to get someone else in, we should just do one of these.
Yeah, just talk shit.
Yeah, and then we'll do a mix session. We'll do some live mixing of what we play about with and what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve.
That would be very cool.
Very
Be fun.
Loads of mixing engineers watching.
Is there?
Aye.
Who?
They're not real ones. They're not as good as us.
We're the only mix
I'm
engineers
not
here.
advertising anyone else on this podcast. Right, Phil, away to bed. Hey,
It was a pleasure.
it was lovely talking to you all. It's nice getting questions and feedback and talking to people. That's class. Cheers for listening in and giving a shit. And we'll catch yous on the flip. Have a good